On today's Live Open Daily, Steam Next Fest has started, which means there are multiple VR demos to play. I have played all 13 VR game demos available. I'm going to walk you through each one of them, tell you about the games, and rank them on a tier list I've created here on Tier Maker. I'm your host, Live Open Mike. If you're not familiar with Steam Next Fest, they do these a couple of times a year where they basically just spotlight a bunch of games that are coming up soon and that can get you excited for the games coming through the rest of 2024. That's flat screen and VR. There are literally hundreds of demos available for you to check out some games. And for a lot of indie games who can't really afford to get on a bunch of these gigantic showcases from companies like Ubisoft, the Summer Game Fest, Xbox, Sony, etc., this is a way for them to get attention on their games, hopefully get their wish list numbers up, and build excitement for their games to come out later on in this year or into 2025. The top category is 100% buy it on release, followed by strong enough to wish list. Next is it's okay now, has room to grow. Next is has potential but needs a lot of work. And the final category is hard pass. I've played all 13 of these games. I've got some recorded footage for those of you watching on video. We're going to go through each one of them and get them ranked. I should point out that all of these games really kind of fit into a certain specific genre. So really all these games are not going to be for everyone. This is all just my opinion, but I'll try to make sure to describe the game. So if it sounds interesting to you, even if I might rank it lower, you might still want to check it out. We're going to go in alphabetical order. So the first game is Astro Hunters. I'm going to read the description straight from Steam. Become one of the hunters in Astro Hunters VR, a PvPvE extraction shooter set in space. Explore diverse planets, fight with different enemies, craft, gather resources, and upgrade your weapons. But remember, there are other hunters on the planet. Will you ally, fight, or betray? It's up to you. This game comes from Winkley Studios. You might know them as the makers of Survival Nation. That is an open world multiplayer zombie survival game. It originally started as a Pico exclusive and later got ported to Quest and PCVR last year. If you think of something like, in VR terms, Ghost of Tabor, just like a straight extraction shooter, but you put that in space, and sci-fi is absolutely my jam, that's essentially what this game is. You load into a bit of a spaceport where you can walk around to different vendors and buy guns, ammo, resources like healing, so on and so forth. And then there are these pods that you go into, and from there you can select a planet to travel to run a mission. You're going to see some footage from my stream on Twitch of this game. I will advise you, because I played this offline after I kind of crashed and burned on Twitch. If you're going to go to your first planet, I advise you to buy a shotgun. You do start the game with some money, and you also start with a pistol that has a ton of ammo. I think it's actually unlimited, but that pistol is very, very weak against some of the gigantic creatures you first encounter on the planet. The first one almost killed me. Like most extraction shooters, that's why these are kind of an acquired taste. It's pretty slow moving to start unless there are other players on the planet. This is a demo, so I only saw one other player when I was in it both times, and they were actually in the space hub. They were not on the planet with me. So beyond that, you're just walking to whatever target you need to get to. There is a waypoint marker that shows you how far out you are. By the way, don't step in the lava on the first mission. It kills you instantly. And once you get there, in the first mission, you actually have to eliminate 8 enemies. Once you get there, you start a firefight with the enemies. The gun handling it's okay. It can definitely be improved. It doesn't really feel smooth. The sight lines are a little bit off. As for the enemy AI, I'm going to remind people that this is a demo. The animations are a little bit stiff. They kind of just run at you and shoot you, but they're pretty effective. For instance, I actually got killed by one on my second time through before I finally completed that mission. In general, if you want a little bit more sci-fi fare in your extraction shooter, if you don't really like the realistic stuff like a Tarkov or a Ghost of Tabor, if you're like me and you're a sci-fi nerd, I'm a big Star Trek and Star Wars guy, this could be right up your alley. I'm going to put it on strong enough to wish list. I will point out this game actually does have a Quest demo available as well. Next game is Evil's Punk. Reading the description from Steam, VR action roguelite shooter game, dark enemies, steampunk universe, and fast-paced gameplay. How well can you defend the church? Shed light on the darkness. The fate of humanity is at the tip of your barrel. I'm not going to miss words. This was the worst demo in the lot. I was not impressed with this one at all. This game comes to us from Digivega Studios. I don't think they have any other VR background. I'm looking up their page on Steam right now. No, this is actually their first game published on Steam. The other game is a flat car battler called CEO Tycoon, My Game Studio. And frankly, this shows. Visually, it's okay. It's pretty cartoony. It's got that like shimmery overbloom you might see in a game like Drop Dead the Cabin. But that's about where the good stops, and I'm even kind of stretching to say that was good. The frame rate was absolutely atrocious in this. I was getting like 35 frames per second when I streamed this on Twitch. When I did it offline, it only jumped up to 45. If you get below 60 frames per second in any kind of VR game, you're absolutely dead in the water. There were micro stutters when I was walking, especially when I was trying to go upstairs. I'll put some of that footage on screen if I can find it. But if you walked up the stairs outside this you start bouncing up and down. And long story short, this game got me motion sick. Even if you took away the technical problems with the game, like I saw some shimmering, like it wasn't like screen door effect, but just like some shimmers going across the screen. The smooth turning wasn't very smooth. It would stutter every time I would turn. There's a litany of technical issues with this game. But then if you get past that, the gun handling is absolutely atrocious. When you pick up a gun, which are these massive revolvers, they're this gigantic crosshair that you aim at, but the recoil is so bad that the crosshair isn't even accurate. The only credit I'm going to give this game is the reload effect on the guns look pretty cool. If you tap A or X on the lower buttons of either one of your controllers, the guns go through this really slick looking animation. And frankly, it was the best looking part of the game. Everything else was just bad. The enemies are these steampunk robot looking zombies that just either blindly rush at you or blindly rush at this hut that you're in. And it becomes more of a tower defense game because then they rush at the building and start hitting it. The building flashes red. You also have a health meter yourself. So if the building gets destroyed, which doesn't even have an animation when it goes away, or if you get killed, game over. It's just so clunky. They don't react at all when they get hit. There's not even like an impact to show that your bullet scored unless you actually kill them, in which case they just kind of poof and disappear, and that's it. There are two types. There's one slow and one fast. The fast one gets in your face so fast that sometimes it's hard to hit them. Even if you hit them with a straight headshot, if you were standing point blank, your gun can sometimes still miss because the recoil was so bad. This is a bad game. It's not even worth playing. I'm going to put this in hard pass. Don't waste your time. Next game is Frenzy Blood. Immersive 1930s alternative America noir VR shooter. Become a traumatized bounty hunter on the trail of insane doctor, battle puppet villains, use realistic weapons, leverage alcohol and tobacco in this gripping adventure. The trailer for this game made it look a lot better than it is, at least in the demo that I experienced. Again, gun handling is a problem here. Reload to the main area of this game. It walks you through the basics of how to pull out, reload, and set your gun to fire. And then there are a bunch of bottles dotted around for you to do target practice. I had to be right up on the bottle to be able to hit something, and I played a lot of VR shooters. The grab mechanics were a little hokey, or should I say the grab boxes were a little bit hokey. So if you've ever played a game where you had to hover your hand over something, Arizona Sunshine 2 has this problem, where you hover your hand over something and you need this icon to appear to tell you that you can actually grab it, and you have to tap grab to pick it up. That's what this is, and the areas are just not really good. So you end up spending a lot of time just kind of wave your hand over an area to get the right position to grab the gun or the bottle or the ammo or whatever else you're trying to pick up. The enemies are pretty much standard wave shooter affair. Well, they just run at you with either a machete or a gun. Sometimes they will try to dodge left or right, but the dodge just looks so hokey that actually kind of took me out of it. I laughed the first time I saw it. Visually, it's fine. It actually had a fair amount of detail, but the micro stutters were bad. I don't know if they just cranked anti-aliasing way up on this game. If you go into the comfort settings, it actually says in development, so you can't change it in the comfort settings, so you're stuck with snap turning. And the anti-aliasing got to a point where if you walk too fast or turn too fast, you could just see the stutters coming down on screen. It's got some foundation here, but it needs a lot of work. We're going to put it in, has potential, but needs a lot of work. Next game is Jarpug, and I'm going to put this in the category of do not judge a book by its cover. When I first looked at this with my Twitch audience, we all laughed at this. Here's a description. Jarpug is a JRPG about a pug with a jar on her head. Hellpug and her friends explore a 3D platformer world and fight in turn-based RPG battles. Designed for VR and flat screens, either way is a great way to play. Explore the magical, fantastic world of the modern dog. I looked at this and I laughed. I did not think it's going to be very good. Plus, I always get a little worried when I see hybrid games by people who haven't made VR games before because I always worry about the mechanics. This one gets around that because you're not actually moving. This is a diorama style game, akin to something like Moss, although it's not quite that good. Or if you played a game like Ghost Giant, something like that, where you're basically manipulating the world around you. Carly the Reaper Man is another good example of this, where if you're in VR, you're moving the platform up or down, and you're basically moving your body to get the best vantage position for what you're doing. I laughed when I said JRPG, but frankly, they hit all the points of this. There's a full party system here. Your first companion is another dog that you meet after you escape your house, and then you two alternate turns in turn-based battles against these enemies. As for the battle system, there's a circular bar that circles around your character, whichever character's turn it is, and when that bar goes full white, then you can actually do an attack. Some of the attacks are AoEs, meaning area of effect, where you can hit more than one enemy. There are power-ups that kind of dot around the battlefield that you can actually hit those directly instead of an enemy. You end up burning your turn, but it's the same as using the item. And then the enemy's turn comes up, and there might be like this big red flashy thing that tells you to dodge with. I was using the quest, so it's hit B to dodge and dash out the way. Or they might be throwing a projectile at you, and again, there's this like arcing white meter that slowly turns red. You have to tap the button at the exact time to parry the attack and not get hurt. After the enemy's turn, then it's your turn again, and it goes back and forth. But the funny thing is, unlike traditional turn-based combat where you're standing still, you can actually move your puck and your other character around to position yourselves to be in the best possible spot to either like hit a power-up or be in range for an AoE to hit 2 enemies at once. The battle system was way better than I ever thought it would be. I only intended to play this game about 15 minutes because I didn't think it would appeal to me, and I ended up playing this for almost an hour. It's got a sense of humor too. They use bark for every swear word you can think of, so it'd be like mother barkers or what the bark, things like that. I actually kind of chuckled at that. It might get a little old after a while, but for the amount that I played, I was actually having a good time, and I just couldn't stop playing this. It grabbed my interest enough, even though visually it's really not great. You're going to see the visuals on screen if you're watching the video, but the gameplay really shocked me. It's enough for me to put it on my wish list, so I'm going to put it in strong enough to wish list. Step into Masternoid, an electrifying arcade brick breaker designed for players of all ages. Experience the nostalgic thrill of classic gameplay, reimagined for the VR era, infused with dazzling explosions and game-changing power-ups. This is one of those games, and there are a lot of VR games like this that don't really look good when you look at screenshots of it, but when you see it in motion and when you actually get inside the headset, it's fine. The description does a pretty good job of this. It's a retro-themed game where you are using a gun to fire a ball at a arrangement of bricks directly in front of you in this 3D cube. Depending on how many of the bricks that you hit, you might get a power-up that might give you like 2 balls, or it might encase the bricks in a dome where if we fire a ball into it, it just rebounds off the dome and kills a bunch of stuff. There are combos you can pull off. There are leaderboards. It's a pretty straightforward brick breaker, but frankly, it was the best demo because it was the best executed. I did run into one bug where if you beat your high score, and since you're playing the game for the first time, every score you get is going to be your high score. It doesn't exit you out after you finish the puzzle. The devs DM me right after they saw my stream of this and said they had fixed the bug. I have since tried the game again and the bug is fixed. And it's fine. If you like a pretty straightforward, simple puzzle game, go ahead and wishlist this. It's not a graphical masterpiece. It's not winning game of the year. It's just a very simple game that's executed very well. I think it's worth a wish list if you're into puzzle games like this. Minimally invasive. In his VR experience, utilize an assortment of tools with your mechanical arms to tackle environmental surgery puzzles, all while bracing for unexpected dangers. This game opens with his comic book style that kind of walk you through the basics of the story. I'm not sure who your character is in this game, but basically you are tasked with flying into a shrunk down spaceship and flying into the body of this person to save them by attacking whatever like viruses or blockages are exist in their system. You shrink down the ship, you fly into the mouth of this person that you're trying to save, and now you find yourself inside their bodies. The controls were a bit of a letdown because you have to grab these 2 handles of the ship to be able to steer, but you can't move the handles back and forth. All the steering is done with your actual analog sticks. So your left one moves you up and down or forward and backwards. Right trigger and left trigger lift or drop your ship. For instance, you hit left trigger to land on the spot, and then your right stick turns you. You can't actually use, there's no full motion controls. You can't actually use the sticks to turn, but if you don't have your hands on them, then you can't control the ship. I thought that was a little bit weird. That was a bit of a letdown. I was hoping to actually use the motion controls for that. Maybe they'll put that in at a later date. You have these 2 gigantic mechanical arms that you pull out with left and right grip. And once you hold those, you can hit either A or X, the lower buttons or either controller, to control either one. There's also a wheel associated with each one that has a scanner, a grabber, a laser, all these different tools that you can use. Basically, you're not really using your real arms. You're controlling these mechanical arms to do everything you need to do. You also have a jetpack boosters to jump across parts of the body. There's no other way to describe it to progress within the game. So your scanner reveals that maybe there are cysts or the blockages you need to get rid of, and then you use your mechanical arms to grab these cyst explosives. They're kind of hard to describe, and then put the explosive in a proper spot to open the blockage and go to a new area of the body. It's quirky as hell. I thought the music was actually not bad. The controls are a little bit clunky until you get used to them. I spent most of my time in the demo outside of the ship walking around or flying around and trying to proceed forward. It was just okay. There were a lot of points I liked about it and a lot of things I didn't like about it. We're going to put it in okay down, but has room to grow. Periculum. Periculum is a casual strategy game about conquering hexagonal tiles. Choose from many different game modes and maps or create your own unique levels. Engage in epic battles against up to 7 bots or challenge your friends to see who comes out on top with plenty of unique options to choose from. If you like strategy games, you're probably at a disadvantage in VR because there aren't a lot of great ones, and this one isn't great either. There's a whole different array of different soldiers and different structures you can build, like logging mills, fishing ports, things like that. to basically start to level up your characters. There are also archers, there's soldiers, there's horseback riders. You place them on the field and you can advance them one position at a time each turn. So the more you place, the more soldiers you have on the field to be able to move in a given turn. Combat is very simple. If there's an enemy on the tile, you move your soldier to that tile. And if your attack power is greater than their attack power, you kill them or they kill you. If they both equal out, which in the example you're going to see on screen, I put one soldier in the tile of an enemy soldier of the same type. You basically kill each other and then you move on. Again, I'm not a strategy guy, so it's kind of hard for me to rate this game. This wasn't really something I particularly enjoyed, but I don't really play real-time strategy games. I think we're going to stick this right in the middle and say it's okay now, but has room to grow. This game is Phantom Blood. Immerse yourself with this spine-chilling Metroidvania-like ghost hunting game. Navigate the haunted halls with your electric gadgets, collect upgrades, and show the uninvited ghosts true hospitality. If you've ever played any of the Luigi's Mansion games from Nintendo, that is absolutely the vibe this game is going for, so your mileage may vary depending on if you like that type of game. I've never played a Luigi's Mansion game. I've seen them on Twitch, but I've never actually played one myself. In spite of the very basic graphics, the very basic animations, kind of hokiness with the gun that you use to suction everything up, I actually had fun with this. You start at the mansion where you've received a letter from the mayor asking you to basically clean up this house and get rid of the ghosts. The opening is a little bit hokey because you have to find a key in the main room that you're in. The key opens up another room where you encounter your first ghost, but you can't do anything about it. All you have to do is find another room to escape that first room. I thought that was a little not really necessary. Then you're transported to this arena where you learn how to battle ghosts yourself and you do your first real boss fight. So if you were a Luigi's Mansion fan and you were looking for something like that in VR, I would go ahead and advise you to wishlist this. For me personally, I'm going to put it in. It's okay now, has room to grow. Pirates VR Jolly Roger is a game alluding to old stories of the all-time most famous pirates. The journey into the pirate world begins on a deserted island. Despite its extraordinary charm, the land hides a number of secrets and mysteries to be solved, as well as obstacles and traps. This game is from Splitlight Studio. Their last VR game was an okay horror game called Afterlife VR. It's actually very short though. You could beat it in about 2 hours. The trailer looks fantastic, and I was worried that I wasn't going to get the same level of visuals in VR. The footage you're going to see over this, if you're watching the video version, is from my Twitch stream. I had to turn the graphics down to make it work on Twitch because overhead from GPU. When I played this offline, I was able to crank the graphics all the way up. I don't have a 4090, so I can't do that on stream. I thought the game looked really good. Unfortunately, the demo kind of lets this down. It's basically Tutorial Island. You go through, you learn the basics of how to swim, how to climb. You don't do any real combat. The demo here is basically a scavenger hunt. You have to climb, move, swim, and walk around to find pieces to unlock a cave that basically starts the main area of the game. There is a parrot that serves as your navigator and your hint machine. He calls you an asshole a couple of times throughout the demo if you get too close to it or swipe at it. But in general, it's going to help you along and guide you through what you're supposed to do to get through the demo. But the game itself looked pretty good and it's got the promise enough for me to wishlist it. So I'm going to put it in strong enough to wishlist. Next game is Ruinbender. Ruinbender is a fast-paced, single-player roguelite VR wave shooter in which players fight against monster waves from Slavic mythology to protect the shrine of the god Veles, I think is how you pronounce that. Draw runes to cast spells of different elements and shoot them wisely against the Perun, the mad god of thunder. Description says it all, but the execution of this one was really, really clunky. You're in stationary position after you go through the tutorial and a very, very long intro from a god who just spouts at you for the first 2 or 3 minutes of the demo, and then you start getting into it. So in this game, both your hands work independently. If you go up, down, left, or right, you actually activate a rune of a different element, either earth, water, fire, or lightning. And then there are 4 different parts of a circle, and you have to hit them in a specific sequence. It's usually just an upside down V, but which spots you hit depends on which element you're trying to trigger. Then that pulls an attack to your hand. You then aim the hand at an enemy and hit trigger to fire. It's a lot of steps to go through for a wave shooter, and it really showed once you get into, I was able to beat the first 2 waves, but then wave 3, you just get absolutely swarmed, and you're trying to like find very quickly how you're supposed to get all these runes in your hand and hit that many enemies. Each enemy also has an elemental weakness. You'll see a little symbol above each enemy indicating whether it's weak to fire, lightning, earth, or lightning. So you have to draw that rune, but if a bunch of them are in front of you at once, you don't know which one to attack. They don't even come all the way up to you. There's just like this little bubble, I guess, this little like boundary that they come up to. They start hitting that, so they're basically swinging that air, and then the screen flashes red, so they're not directly in front of you. I guess that's to protect you from getting too overwhelmed if there are too many enemies there, but the mechanics don't really work well for a wave shooter. I guess if you got fast at the runes, or fast enough drawing the runes to be able to get them out to your hands faster, you can also make a bigger attack if you bring both of your hands together and fire. But if you have 8 enemies on the screen at once, you really kind of want to two-hand this thing and just blow them all away. But if you mess up the drawing of the rune, you have to start all over. I messed up several times because the tension gets in there and then you just start to panic. I only played this for about 15 minutes because I think wave shooters are kind of dated at this point in 2024 in VR. And while this game, I appreciated trying to do something a little bit different, visually it's too cartoony to kind of take the mythology they're going for seriously, because the character that speaks to you at the beginning is speaking very seriously. And then you get into this environment and it looks silly. The controls didn't really do it for me because all the rune drawing and everything makes the game feel really slow for you. Meanwhile, you're being assaulted by all these enemies at once. I wish they could figure out a way to kind of balance that a little bit better. It's not a bad game, but it definitely needs a lot of work. So we're going to put it in has potential, but needs a lot of work. Security control. If I had not played Evil Spunk, this would have been the worst demo I played. Security control. Don't get fired. Dive into a multiplayer adventure for 1 to 4 players, mastering objectives, outsmarting security, and navigating the twists of the corporate maze. Team up with or challenge friends in this immersive co-op experience available in both VR and non-VR modes. Off the rip, I'm going to tell you, this game is ugly looking. It's not a very good game to look at, so the gameplay was really going to make or break this one, and the gameplay is just as bad. So this game, after you learn the basics of the tutorial, which is there's a phone in your chest that you can use to activate a flashlight, look at messages to get hints of what you're supposed to do or directions on what you're supposed to do next, what tasks you need to complete to escape. There's also a scanner that scans for a key card, either blue or orange, and you need to find that key card, obtain it, and then scan it at an elevator to escape the level, all while a security guard is randomly walking through whatever area you're in, shining the flashlight and trying to capture you. If you get captured and thrown in jail, if you're playing by yourself, the game is over. If you're playing with a friend, then your friend can find the orange key card, which will actually open up the jail area and free you. That's the basic loop of the game. It actually sounded okay on paper, but there's a lot of execution problems with this. Number 1 is the movement. The doors open automatically, but then for some reason you hitch every single time you have to walk through a door. I almost had to like ram my control stick forward to be able to get my player to walk forward. At one point I actually stepped forward to get over the threshold of the door. I stepped forward in real life to get over the threshold of the door and then be able to move forward. This happened every single time I walked up to a door, and it drove me insane. The second problem with this is the scanner. It is this very annoying beep sound, and it beeps more rapidly if you get closer to a key card. And it just continuously beeps the entire time, but you need it on because you have to find this blue key card to be able to get to the elevator and eventually escape. I only lasted about 15 minutes in this game before I had to bail. The beeping sound of the scanner was annoying. Visually, it wasn't great. The stuttering and the hitching going through a door just got on my nerves. I wasn't happy with this at all. It's going to go in the hard pass. I didn't think this was just bad. Last game is Subside. Subside is an immersive aquatic VR experience with multiple areas to explore and lifelike aquatic creatures to interact with. Crafted with unparalleled realism, it aims to replicate the nuances of real-life swimming and diving in shallow waters. If you've ever played the quest game The Climb, think about that, but you're actually deep-sea diving. You drop into this enclosed pool area where you're using your arms to swim and propel yourself forward. Underwater, you're looking for coins and a key to open a chest, and you can use the coins to buy stuff like flippers to let yourself move faster and other power-ups. The demo itself is pretty basic. There's only one area in the game that you can explore. But the water mechanics I thought were fine. The swim mechanics. Swimming is a thing that's kind of tricky to do well in VR. I thought this played just perfectly fine. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm not going to put it on par with something like Kayak VR, but underwater and above water, even if you have to turn the graphics down because you don't have a great GPU. I have a 3070, so I was playing this at medium. I turned it up to high at one point, and the draw distance underwater just looks fantastic. It is very much a tech demo, but it's a good tech demo. As far as demos go, this is probably the one that was the most well made in terms of giving you the idea of what the full game will be. I will want to see another area before I would actually commit to buying this, but it's good enough that I'm going to put it on my wish list. So to recap here, none of these games were, oh my god, I have to buy this right away. Nothing came in the category of 100% buy it on release. Strong enough to wish list were Astro Hunter, Jarpug, Masternoid, Pirates VR Jolly Roger, and Subside. It's okay but has room to grow. That's Minimally Invasive, Periculum, and Phantom Bound. Has potential but needs a lot of work. It's Frenzy Blood and Rune Bender VR. And then Hard Pass. Don't play these demos at all. They're not worth your time. That's Evil Punk and Security Control. That's a wrap for this episode. If you want more live open mic content, I stream 5 of these demos live on Twitch. I stream VR there 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So go follow me over there. Also, make sure to follow the YouTube channel, Spotify, wherever you didn't listen to this, go get the other spot, and follow me on X. All those are at Live Open Mic. I'll talk to you tomorrow.